Hi, everybody. Welcome back. All right, so we are on the 10th and final chapter of our book, Writing Freedom. Charlotte, has achieved just so many of her goals, it looks like, and she still has goals set up. She needs to change her property into a way station. She's hoping that Ebenezer will stay. Hayward's out there, so she really has done. Hayward stayed for a month of Sundays, and Charlotte couldn't bear thinking about him leaving again. The morning he left, he said, "Hey, you can stock tender for me as long as you like." "Charlotte, I'm beginning to think you like having me around," he teased. "I never thought I'd see the day. But first, I got work to finish in Missouri. Then I got to help my folks move out here." He hesitated, then said, "Charlotte, come with me." Charlotte looked out the window as if she hadn't heard him. She turned and looked at him. "I can't, hey. I don't want to leave. I worked my whole life for this. I belong here. I want to build up my horse stock, and I got apples to pick and things I got to do. Besides, there's something I've been thinking about for some time that I feel real strongly about." She knew she could tell Hay anything, but she wasn't sure how he'd react to this. "I registered to vote in Santa Cruz County. This election's in a few weeks, and I don't want to miss it." Hayward stared at her and shook his head. "Charlotte, you'll be going against the law." "Hey, I know more about who to vote for than most. Women are citizens of this country, just like you. They work hard and make decisions, same as a man's." "There are a lot of folks who don't agree." "Well, there's a lot of men who don't agree," said Charlotte. "If no one knows you're a woman." "Well, I guess I'm proving that here I am, a member of this county that most folks respect. Most of them ask me who I'm voting for. And the only reason I can't walk in and vote is because they think I'm a man. Sooner or later, they'll all know I was a woman and my point will be made." "So someday you're going to let people know you're a lady?" he asked. "Well, maybe," his head. "You know you're mine, Charlotte, and that's fine by me. You know how I feel about you." "I know." He gave her a big hug and acted like he was never going to let go. Then he got on his horse and rode down the lane past the corral. Charlotte stood on the porch and watched him ride away. He stopped halfway down the road and waved his hat. And Charlotte waved back, whispered to herself. Obviously, very hard for her and him to have to part ways again, but he's got family he has to take care of, so it has to be done. But they're obviously very close. It was sprinkling when Charlotte rode into town that November afternoon, but a little rain couldn't stop her. She hoped it wouldn't stop other folks from getting out and doing what they had to do. Luckily, by the time she got to town, the sun had come out. She hitched the Mustang and walked down the street and nodded to the people walking by. A big sign in the window of the hotel said, "Holes." Some of the ladies in town went about their errands and didn't seem to give a second thought to the long line of men in front of the hotel. Others gathered out front in twos and threes, waiting for their menfolk, and acted like there was nothing special going on inside. Charlotte wondered if they really didn't care, or if they were, he said. Another man said, "Pretty exciting day, ain't it, Charlie?" Charlie didn't say much. She shook hands all around and got in line with the men. She listened to them banter and joke around her. "Heard Wyoming's going to give women the right to vote. I thought I'd heard everything. What's this country coming to? What do you think, Charlie?" Charlotte said, "I don't think it hurts nothing. Guess they know their minds as well as us." "Don't hurt nothing. Them women fighting for this is just plain crazy, stirring up trouble all over. They'll be the ruination of this country. I told my wife that she wouldn't ever be voting as long as she's married to me, no matter what the law says. What does she know about politics?" Several other men added their opinions. Said, "Sarah and I can't play ball because I'm little and she's a girl. And she's fighting him in the street and he's twice as big as her. Hurry, Papa." Father shook his head. "We told her and told her about fighting. When's the girl going to learn? The men chuckled, and the father and the little boy left. The line moved closer to the desk. Charlotte got to the front and signed the book. The registrar handed her the ballot. She studied the names: Horatio Seymour or Ulysses S. Grant, the conservative Democrat, or the much talked about Republican. She had listened to the talk and heard the people's debates. She had heard good things and bad things about both men, but she knew her own mind and what she thought was right. You know who you're voting for, Charlie? Asked the man next to her. Yes, I do, said Charlotte. Old Jake couldn't make it today because he's ailing. Felt real bad about not coming, but I told him one vote won't make no difference. Would they just think she had been crazy, or would they wonder if she had had a good reason? Yes, she told herself, she did have a good reason. This was something she could do for that woman who stood in front of all those laughing men and passed out handbills on the saloon. Should have been able to. And for that little girl outside who was already standing up for herself. She smiled. And for me, she thought, because I'm as qualified as any man. She marked her choice for the President of the United States. She turned in her ballot, then faced the crowd of men still waiting in line. She tipped her hat. Gentlemen, she said, may the best man win. Then she walked out of the hotel, got on her horse, and rode home. So not only did she beat the whole system and become a woman who owned property, which no women did, rode horses, took care of horses, did all the stuff. That is a true story, remember? So that's pretty amazing. We have a little bit at the end to read as well. So let's read that. Ebenezer arrived in the spring, just before the foal. He surveyed the property and grumbled about all the things that should be done. The pasture fence needed mending, and the chickens needed a new coop. Margaret needed help selling the eggs in town, and Charlotte was tickled because she figured that all his belly aching meant he'd come to stay. And the foal, it came in the middle of the night, in the middle of a thunderstorm. It gave Charlotte fits and worries because it was breech, trying to come out the wrong way. She coaxed as best she knew, but when she was afraid they'd both be. While Ebenezer tried to deliver the foal, Charlotte paced like an expectant father. Her mind was on the night she sat up with Freedom, and she was remembering Vern. If he were here, he'd be telling her to settle down, that Ebenezer knew what he was doing. Vern had been right about so many things. But Charlotte needn't have worried. By the time the rooster crowed, a wet, folded up bundle of legs was delivered. A filly. The baby horse barely stood on her wobbly legs when Ebenezer said, "There's another one coming! Twins!" And in a few frantic minutes, a colt stood next to his sister. "What are you going to name them?" asked Ebenezer. "Naming something's important," she said, "and a name should stand for something. A horse's name should be fitting for a fine animal." She watched the foals and didn't say anything. The mare licked the colt and the filly started nursing. And after she'd considered them for some time, Charlotte crossed her arms and nodded her head with a knowing smile. It had come to her. "Well, you going to keep it to yourself?" said Ebenezer. Charlotte was right proud to explain her reasoning behind it all. And that, my friends, is the end of Writing Freedom. Thank you so much for reading that with me. That is my first time reading it, and I loved it. So I hope you did too. I am extra impressed by the fact that it was a true story and that this young lady did all the things that this book said in a time period where women weren't really allowed to do much of anything. So super impressive. And it was a great treat to get to read it with all of you. I do hope, like I said, that you guys enjoyed it. And we have a couple more days for this week, so let's make them the best we can, and I will see you soon.